Good evening, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your third and final video blog of the night for Thursday, November 13, 2014, around 8:18 p.m. in Billerica, Massachusetts. The area northwest of Boston is under a winter weather advisory from 12 a.m. midnight to 9 a.m. in the morning. 1 to 2 inches of snow expected on the grassy surfaces. Some isolated 3 inches of snow. We'll see how it plays out, but this will be impacting the morning commute. Some news to report. The MVPs of the American League and National League were announced. The American League's most valuable player was Mike Trout, outfielder of the LA Angels of Anaheim. He won the 2014 American League most valuable player unanimously. There was no doubt about he was going to win it. And in the National League, it was LA Dodgers pitcher, ace pitcher, Clayton Kershaw won National League's 2014 most valuable player. He's the first pitcher in the National League to win the most valuable player award since Bob Gibson in 1968. And also the Miami Marlins are talking with outfielders Giancarlo Stanton on a 10-year contract extension worth $300 million. Stanton will be getting a no-trade clause when and if he signs his contract. This is a good move by the Marlins because they have a new stadium and they want to keep star players from in their system. In their team for long term. They don't want to have crowds under 10,000 at the stadium because it's a new stadium. And that's about it on that. My third and final video blog of the night is my personality profile. My personality profile tonight is about a former professional football player and a former professional wrestler, the late great Chief Wahoo McDaniels. Wahoo McDaniels was one of the most colorful football players of all time, playing 9 seasons in the AFL. Then he became a professional wrestler, one of the all-time greats. And Wahoo McDaniels was a real Native American in professional wrestling. He had real lineage to Native Americans, not like the other professional wrestling Native Americans like Don Eagle, who was French Canadian, Billy White Wolf, who was from Iraq-Indian descent, Chief Jay Strombo, who was Italian, and Tatanka, who was Hispanic. Wahoo McDaniels' real name was Edward McDaniels. He is from Chukota and Chickasaw descent. For those tribes, mainly of them were in the southwestern part of the United States of America. Wahoo was born in Benice, Oklahoma. His father was in the oil business, so they moved around a lot in the southwest for many years when Wahoo was just a child. But his family finally settled in Midland, Texas when he was in middle school. And he played baseball and football in high school and in middle school, and actually one of his baseball coaches was the 41st President of the United States of America, George H.W. Bush. Pretty amazing, right? And then Wahoo was a pretty good he got the nickname Wahoo because his father was nicknamed the Big Wahoo, so they called him Wahoo. And Wahoo McDaniels was recruited to play football at Oklahoma University. And he was a good football player. He was a linebacker and an offensive guard. He was pretty good, even though he had some antics of like skipping class and drinking after game. But he was a good football player, and he was drafted by like the Houston Oilers in 1960 for the AFL draft. He played 9 seasons in the AFL with the Oilers and Broncos, but he wasn't a big name until he went to the New York Jets in 1964 when he became a star player. He did a lot of tackles, and the PA announcers will say, "Tackle by McDaniels." tackled by McDaniels. The next one he was tackled by, guess who? Wahoo. He became a cult hero while playing for the Jets. Then he went to the Dolphins, and then he ended his AFL career. In the off season, Wahoo was a professional wrestler. Because football players back in the 60s did not make big bucks. The average salary in the AFL maybe was $10,000 to $20,000. So Wahoo needed to supplement his income, and he trained to become a professional wrestler by Dory Funk Sr. And then he started in 1961 wrestling in the Amarillo territory in the off seasons for a few years. Then in 1965 he wrestled in New York for the WWF, and he wrestled Dr. Jerry Graham, Boris Malenko, and Bill Watts, and a couple of other villains in the WWF territory in New York. He wrestled in the Garden a few times, Madison Square Garden. And then later on, he wrestled part-time for championship wrestling for Florida. And when Wahoo retired from playing professional football in 1968, he became a full-time wrestler. He feuded with Dory Funk Jr. over the NWA World Title in several territories. He wrestled in Japan. He wrestled in AWA for a while. He feuded with superstar Billy Graham. In 1974, Wahoo went to the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling territory run by Jim Crockett's promotion. This is where he enjoyed most of his professional wrestling success, Wahoo McDaniels. Wahoo McDaniels feuded with Johnny Valentine over the U.S. Championship. They had a classic feud and stuff. That feud went to a tag team. Well, Wahoo picked Mr. Number 1 Paul Jones, while Johnny Valentine picked Nature Boy Ric Flair as his tag team partner, and then they traded off the Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championships a few times. Then Wahoo McDaniels feuded with Ric Flair on and off for the next 10 years, was one of the amazing feuds. Some of it was for the NWA World Championship and other titles. And then Wahoo feuded with Greg the Hammer Valentine over the Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship. And in one classic angle in 1977, Greg the Hammer Valentine broke Wahoo McDaniels' leg with the figure 4 leg lock. It was pretty good. This was a great angle. Greg the Hammer Valentine rehashed that storyline 2 years later in the WWF with Chief Jay Strongbow. It was a classic angle. And then Wahoo got his revenge a few months later. And then Wahoo feuded with Ken Patera in Mid-Atlantic as well. And during this time, Wahoo would go to Championship Wrestling from Florida. He held the Florida Heavyweight Championship a few times, their version of the U.S. Tag Team titles a couple of times, and he had a feud with Harley Race over the NWA World Title in Florida and stuff. And then Georgia, and he wrestled in Japan and in Texas a few times. He feuded with Tully Blanchard in Southwest Championship Wrestling and stuff. And in the early 80s, he went to the AWA Wahoo McDaniel, and he feuded with Nick Bockwinkel over the AWA World Title. In 1981, Wahoo McDaniel returned to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling as his primary wrestling territory, and he feuded with Sergeant Slaughter over the United States Heavyweight title. Wahoo won the U.S. title record 5 times in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and they had a very big feud. Also, Wahoo still feuded with Nature Boy Ric Flair over the NWA World Title in 1982, some classic matches. 1983, Wahoo McDaniel teamed with Mark Youngblood for a few times, and they actually wrestled at the first Starrcade Wrestling. Dick Slater and Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., and then they actually won the NWA Tag Team title tournament in 1984. Around 1984, Wahoo McDaniel, who wrestled as a face for all of his career, was was turned heel for the first time after a classic interview when he was interviewing why he didn't get any title shots with Ric Flair, who was also a face. And then Tully Blanchard comes in and like rips Ric Flair's clothing off, and Ric Flair gets mad. Why didn't Wahoo McDaniel to help him? Wahoo says he was just they called him the Indian, the good old Indian and stuff like that. The Wahoo's heel turn was classic. He defeated Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the U.S. title, and then the title was held up because Wahoo McDaniel formed an alliance with Tully Blanchard. Tully Blanchard interfered, and they held it up, but Wahoo regained it in a tournament, and Wahoo wrestled superstar Billy Graham at Starrcade 84. That match was kind of a classic match. Wahoo won, and both were heels, but superstar Billy Graham played the de facto face, and he came out to the ring with kung fu fighting. But when that was on WWE Classics on Demand or 24/7 or the WWE Network, kung fu fighting was replaced by different music because they don't want to pay the company rights every time that music's played. So that's another story for another day. Then Wahoo McDaniel lost the U.S. title to Magnum TA in 1985, and then Wahoo returned face, and then he went back to Florida and then Mid-Atlantic for several months. He's feuded with Jimmy Garvin and Ravishing with Groot, and some of them were classic Indian strap matches where Wahoo bled a lot and stuff like that. Wahoo was one of the most famous bleeders of all time, and the Indian strap match was a specialty. He did them in feuds that were getting to the point they culminated in an Indian strap match. In the late 80s, Wahoo McDaniel went back to the AWA, and he had like feuded with Kurt Hennig over the AWA World Title, and then he feuded with Jerry the King Lawler. He had a bloody feud with Manny Fernandez, and also Larry Zbyszko over the AWA World Title. Wahoo was forced to retire because he got injured in a tag team match by Wayne Bloom and Mike Enos, who were the Beverly Brothers in WWE, because he suffered a detached retina. But that was just a storyline because Wahoo was moving out of professional as an in-ring performer to be a booker and an agent for the AWA, but he didn't last too long in the AWA because they folded, and then Wahoo came back, went to WCW to be like a backstage agent for a while, but then Wahoo wrestled the independent circuit in the early to mid-90s, and some of the matches were billed as his retirement match, even though he was not retiring. It was just something for like independent promoters to get a big payday out of Wahoo McDaniels. Wahoo briefly appeared in the WWE in 1994 for a special Indian headdress ceremony with him, Chief Jay Strongbow, and Native American Tatanka to put an Indian for him to be the next big Native American Indian superstar. Wahoo McDaniel was inducted into the WCW Hall of Fame in 1995, but his health was deteriorating and he officially retired from the ring in 1996. He lost both kidneys. He was waiting for a kidney transplant. In 2002, when he passed away at the age of 63, he was also like suffering from diabetes. It was very sad and stuff like that. Wahoo McDaniels never had a major run in the WWF or WWE at all. I think the reason why he didn't have a run in the WWF because the WWF had its Indian superstar, Chief Jay Strongbow, and Chief Jay Strongbow was a big draw in the WWF. They could have had like Chief Jay Strongbow and Wahoo McDaniels become a tag team, win the tag team champions, but eventually I think something would have eventually had for them to turn on each other. It's most likely Wahoo was going to play the heel because Chief Jay Strongbow was the number 2 face in the WWF for many years, and plus Chief Jay Strongbow had a history of partners turning on him, so it probably would have been Chief Wahoo McDaniels turning on him, and they would probably have a crazy feud that would have probably culminated with an Indian strap match at the Garden or something, or maybe somehow McDaniels would have won, and then he would have gone on to a series with the WWF champion at the time, either Bruno Sammartino or Bob Backlund. But big major heels in the WWF, that was a face territory, so if a major heel came in, it would be 6 months at the best before they would have to leave town. So I think that was the reason why Wahoo McDaniel never got a run in the WWF or WWE, because they had their Native American big-time heel, Chief Jay Strongbow. And that's what I think it was. And that's about it on Chief Wahoo McDaniels. Hope you'll be enjoying these Facebook videos and YouTube videos, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. I'll be back again tomorrow with 3 more of these. The first one is going to be about the top 10 DVDs that the WWE needs to produce. And there'll be another one, the personality profile, which will be about Sandy Koufax, Baseball Hall of Fame pitcher. And the third and final video blog is going to be about the Boston Celtics dynasty in the 50s and the 60s. And don't forget, Facebook friends and YouTube followers, coming soon, video blogs on Julie Broughton, Local 6. Julie has a great smile and nice legs. She's the All-American Girl. And Heidi Lee Pratt, who has the best smile in the world and the nicest legs in the world, and others. Have a good night, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. Bye now.